After you're discharged from here, would you go back to your parents' house?
My husband said coldly to me, who was about to undergo breast cancer surgery tomorrow. Huh? What do you mean?
I can't see you as a woman anymore. I want to break up.
His words left me bewildered, and at that moment, everything went dark before my eyes, and my mind turned blank. Yet, my husband still didn't realize that it was he that would lose everything. I am Iris, a 28-year-old homemaker. We've been married for 3 years. My husband, Sid, is 34 years old. He works as a salesperson in a general trading company and is considered a promising young talent. I used to work in the same company. Although I loved mathematics since childhood and even majored in it during university, I didn't pursue a research career. When I started thinking about employment, I felt the barriers faced by women in research positions. So, I chose to join the general trading company. That's where I met Sid, who would later become my husband.
Are you a new employee? Feel free to ask if you have any questions.
Sid greeted me warmly when we were assigned to the same department. I must admit that I stood out among the new employees due to my height and the fact that I had made it to the final round of a beauty contest during my university days. Thank you very much, I replied with a smile. Since I was a student, many men had approached me, but they often focused solely on my appearance without really listening to my words. Consequently, I became accustomed to smiling politely and moving on. However, Sid seemed different. Perhaps my sheltered life spent mostly in university research labs had left me somewhat naive about the world. Despite the misconception that my flashy appearance might create, I was surprisingly shy and reserved.
Iris, do you have someone you're dating?
When Sid asked me that, I blushed and replied, "No, I don't." My unexpected gesture seemed to surprise him, and he smiled shyly as well.
If you're willing, would you date me?
When he said that face to face, I nodded honestly. I had never been asked out so seriously before. And so began my relationship with Sid. He always chose wonderful places and restaurants to take me. For someone like me who hadn't ventured far from the university campus, everything was new. About a year later, during a birthday dinner celebration, he handed me a ring.
Let's get married.
At that moment, I felt like I was floating in the sky, realizing that such dramatic moments could happen. I accepted his proposal with a nod.
I'd like you to quit your job and wait for me at home. Is that okay?
That's your condition. Fine by me, I replied. I didn't have any strong career aspirations, and I thought being a homemaker would allow me to read books during breaks from household chores. Later, we visited each other's parents to introduce ourselves formally. My parents were overjoyed. It made sense. Their daughter, who had been quietly attending university and pursuing mysterious research, had brought her future spouse for a visit. My family was considered well off. We owned several properties and lived off rental income. Since my parents didn't need to work for their living expenses, they ran a hobby cafe next to their home. When my parents heard about our marriage plans, they offered to build a new house on a plot of land a little distance away from their home. They insisted it was their gift, so no money was required. In return, they asked that Sid take my last name since I was an only child. Sid was surprised not only by my family's wealth but also by the fact that they were providing us with a brand new house. It made sense. While colleagues struggled with housing loans, he was getting a new home without spending a single penny. A few months later, After our wedding and returning from our honeymoon, we began our life together in our new home. As per my husband's wishes, I quit my job and became a full-time homemaker. Little did I know that being a homemaker would be more challenging than I anticipated. In the morning, I woke up early to prepare breakfast and saw my husband off. Then, while doing the dishes and laundry, I started cleaning the garden. By the time I thought it was over, it was already lunchtime. Since I was alone, I quickly had a meal and then started cleaning inside the house. Living in a single-family home was tough. I was exhausted. Finally, when I caught my breath, it was time to prepare dinner. I didn't have time to read books or relax. Sometimes, I even forgot to prepare dinner due to fatigue. And every time, my husband would yell at me.
I'm tired from work. Can't you even prepare meals and take care of the bath? What's the point of being a homemaker?
But I was not a robot. I had my own health issues, and there were times when I couldn't do everything perfectly.
Hey, I'm sorry about earlier.
Then, at night, my husband would suddenly demand intimacy in a sweet voice. I'm tired, let me sleep. But if I refused, he'd instantly become grumpy. It was a difficult situation. I reluctantly took him up on his offer, but all I wanted was to get to sleep sooner. Still, I tried to convince myself that this was just part of married life. My husband, who worked for a trading company, had frequent overtime and business trips. I felt lonely at times, but there was a sense of comfort. As we entered our second year of marriage, my husband's attitude toward me changed noticeably. Previously, even after yelling at me, he'd still seek comfort. But now, he often went straight to bed without any affection. Although he continued with overtime and business trips, something felt different. In hindsight, those might have been signs of infidelity. When I finally mustered the courage to ask him, he replied with an annoyed expression.
I've recently been put in charge of a new product line, and I'm having a hard time. Can you leave me alone for a while?
At that moment, I still believed my husband's words. One night, he returned home early and, after a long time, sought intimacy from me. Perhaps due to pent-up frustration, I reluctantly complied. My husband, who had been touching my chest, said,
Wait, what's this?
There's something there. When I touched it myself, I felt a hard lump in my left breast. Until then, I hadn't noticed anything since there was no pain. The next day, feeling anxious, I searched online for a nearby gynecologist to get an examination. Fortunately, there was a well-reputed doctor nearby, so I promptly made an appointment. On the day of the examination, I entered the consultation room with overwhelming anxiety. A kind-looking female doctor greeted me with a smile. She said,
Don't worry, everything will be fine. Please remove your underwear, keep your shirt on, and lie on your back on the examination table.
I followed her instructions and lay down. She palpated my chest, occasionally pressing with her fingers to check for any firm areas. Then, the examination continued with chest X-rays and mammography. Afterward, they performed a blood test and took a sample from the lump for cell analysis. When the examinations were over, the doctor said,
We won't have all the results today, but we'll contact you once they're available.
Although she smiled, her expression seemed sadder than when I arrived. That night, I wanted to discuss it with my husband, but he didn't come home. I spent an anxious night. The next day, when my husband returned, I confronted him about the previous night.
I had an urgent work task. I needed to prepare some documents. Sorry for not contacting you.
He said it without remorse. Then he asked in a disinterested voice.
So, what did the doctor say?
Tears welled up as I replied. I don't know the results yet, but based on the doctor's demeanor, it doesn't seem very positive.
Huh? Isn't it okay?
My husband didn't even look at me and uttered those words indifferently. Did he no longer care about me? The tears I had held back finally streamed down my cheeks. Oblivious to my emotions, he remained engrossed in his smartphone, exchanging messages. I collapsed onto the bed, and when I woke up, I found my pillow wet from tears. The morning light streamed into the room, but my husband was already gone. Several days passed, and I received a call with the results of the examination. My heart sank. I wanted to discuss it with my husband, but he hadn't returned since that day. When I entered the examination room, a solemn-faced female doctor was waiting for me.
Please have a seat.
I sat down as instructed.
There's a suspicion of breast cancer. I'll write a referral letter to a major hospital. Which one would you prefer?
The doctor informed me. My mind was too shocked to think clearly. Anywhere is fine if they can provide treatment. I replied, struggling to find the right words.
All right.
And the doctor mentioned the name of the nearest large general hospital. I'll go there, thank you. If I could receive treatment, any hospital would. A few days later, armed with the referral letter, I headed to the recommended hospital. I underwent another round of tests, including an ECG and lung examination. They needed to assess whether I had the physical strength for surgery. Finally, it was time for the consultation.
Would you like to know all the test results?
The doctor asked quietly. Certainly, please tell me everything. I don't want anything hidden.
We'll discuss the detailed symptoms of the illness and the treatment plan in the coming days. Please come with your family.
I nodded saying yes and thought I needed to talk to my husband and parents. When I finally told my husband, came back home after a while, about it, he responded callously.
Do I have to go too? I'm busy with work. Isn't it enough for your parents to be there?
I wanted to scream, aren't you worried about my health? But instead, I trembled and whispered, please be there with me when we hear the details. Reluctantly, my husband agreed.
Fine, I'll try to make time.
The next day, I visited my parents' cafe and asked them to join me in hearing the diagnosis. Although we had discussed that I would undergo tests due to my health issues, seeing my parents so visibly shaken was something I'd never witnessed before. My mother, on the verge of tears, asked,
Will you be okay? Will you recover?
I had no answers. I didn't know. We were supposed to hear about the treatment plan together as a family. With a heavy heart, I arrived at the hospital, a little early, with my parents. I waited for my husband, but he never showed up. I tried calling his phone.
Oh, was it today? Sorry, but I have an important meeting coming up. What on earth? I'm sure I mentioned it to my husband. Did he not hear me?
What's wrong with Sid?
My father asked, looking concerned. Oh, it's an urgent work matter. Can't be helped. I forced a smile in my response, even though it felt unnatural. But there was no other choice. In the end, I had breast cancer. The word cancer felt unexpectedly heavy when the doctor finally told me. Even my journey home felt burdensome. I have breast cancer, I informed my husband when he returned from work.
Ah, I see.
His reply was curt. How could he be so indifferent when his wife was seriously ill? And, well, I have surgery scheduled for next week. I might lose my left breast. I choked back tears as I managed to say those words.
Can't be helped. It's an illness, after all.
He said it casually. Is that all? Aren't you even a bit concerned about what I'm going through? Unable to contain myself, I shouted at my husband and locked myself in the bedroom. From that day on, my husband disappeared. I spent each day anxiously, my tears wearing me down. Accompanied by my parents, I faced the day of hospitalization. Would my husband not come even on a day like this? The thought saddened me once again. Then, on the eve of the surgery, my husband appeared in my hospital room. I assumed he had come out of genuine concern, but his words shocked me.
Once the surgery is over and you're discharged, go back to your parents' home.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing from my husband. He continued.
Your left breast might be gone, right? I don't need a woman like that.
How heartless could he be? I tried to reason with him through my tears. Isn't supporting each other what marriage is about, especially during difficult times? But my husband didn't respond. He simply turned and walked out of the room. I wondered if I could handle the surgery with such emotions. However, strangely enough, a surge of strength welled up inside me. I couldn't allow him to continue doing as he pleased. I resolved to fight the illness no matter what. On the morning of the surgery, with my parents by my side, I shared what had happened with my husband the previous day.
Sid said that? Break up with a man like that.
My father's anger was evident in his words.
Exactly, Iris. Not only does he fail to be there for you during difficult times, but he also says such terrible things to a patient before surgery. I never expected that from him.
My mother's frustration was equally apparent. Yeah, but right now, please pray for a successful surgery. I won't give up. With those words, I headed toward the operating room. After the surgery, when I woke up, I found myself in the intensive care unit. I had to remain connected to monitors overnight until the anesthesia completely wore off and my condition stabilized. Fortunately, the cancer hadn't spread as much as I feared, and I didn't need to lose my entire left breast. I felt a small sense of relief. The doctor had mentioned that if the wound healed well, I could be discharged for home recovery in about 2 weeks. However, about a week after moving to the general ward, I received an unexpected call from my mother. My father collapsed and was taken to the hospital by an ambulance. By the time he arrived at the hospital due to a heart attack, it was too late. Despite my successful surgery and the prospect of being discharged, I never expected such misfortune to befall my father. Since I was still in the hospital and unable to do anything, my mother and other relatives managed the funeral arrangements. Even during this difficult time, my husband remained unreachable. When I contacted his company, they informed me that he was on a business trip abroad and wouldn't return for a while. Since my father passed away, I asked the company to contact him somehow. It was heartbreaking to lose my caring father, and I felt powerless. I returned to my parents' home after discharged. Not because my husband told me to, but because I needed to discuss my father's inheritance with my mother. During this time, my husband called.
Congratulations on your discharge. I heard about your father's passing. My condolences. By the way, there's something I want to discuss. Can you come over?
Despite his father-in-law's death, my husband's tone was oddly cheerful. It was as if he had been eagerly waiting for this moment. All right. How about next Sunday? I tried to keep my emotions in check as I responded.
Okay, I'll be waiting.
With that, my husband hung up the phone. Mom, what's the status of the land and house ownership where our home stands? I asked my mother.
That place is in your father's name, and he should be the owner of the house as well. Why do you ask?
She replied. Will those documents be ready by next Sunday? I inquired.
Ready? What are you talking about? All the real estate documents your father had are right here.
As she spoke, my mother arranged the documents on the table. On the following Sunday, already determined to divorce my husband, I carried the divorce papers with my name and signature, along with all the registration documents for our house, to my husband's place. He was at home with a young woman. She wore slightly flashy makeup but had a youthful face. I felt irritated that my husband had chosen someone like her over me.
Well, come in. Although technically, it's still your house.
My husband grinned shamelessly as he spoke. Is this what you came for? I handed the divorce papers to him.
You catch on quickly. Let's get this done.
Without hesitation, he filled in his name on the divorce papers, stamped them, and returned them to me. The woman sat silently next to my husband, observing me.
Your father's passing worked out well, didn't it? Now this house is mine.
My husband looked pleased. What are you saying? I deliberately exaggerated my tone and smirked. I spread the documents on the living room table and said, Where is your name here? This house belongs to my father. What misunderstanding are you having? I raised my voice in exasperation.
This house is something we received from your father. Since I decided to take your family name, doesn't that make me the heir to your father's inheritance?
My husband said it seriously. If he genuinely believed that, it was absurd. Did you adopt my father? No, you didn't. You don't even have ownership rights to this house. The inheritance rights belong to me and my mother. You have no claim to it. I stated it clearly. You are my spouse. Nothing more, nothing less. Your connection to my father's inheritance is irrelevant. In response, my husband stammered.
Oh no! What should I do?
The woman sitting next to him furrowed her brow and angrily retorted.
Wait a minute. You promised to divorce your wife and live with me because you said you had a house. What's going on?
I brandished the divorce papers, saying, We've already filled out the divorce form. Once we submit this at the city office, we won't be husband and wife anymore. Feel free to remarry that woman if you want. But as for this house, I plan to inherit it eventually. What are you two going to do? My husband collapsed to his knees right there, seemingly overwhelmed. Well, I continued, if you want to keep living here, I'll sell it to you. But be warned, property values around here have risen significantly. The woman chimed in.
Exactly. If you can afford it, just buy it. Buy it.
I exaggerated a bit, saying, How about $646,000? That should cover both the house and the land. Given the rising property values in the area, it wasn't an unreasonable estimate.
$646,000. I can't afford that. Are you kidding me?
That's outrageous. It's way too expensive.
I replied, if you think it's too much, consult a real estate appraiser or someone. But I don't think it's as cheap as you imagine. Perhaps my newfound courage after overcoming surgery allowed me to speak so assertively. I thought about how different I was from my shy college self who always stayed in the lab. People can change. You're clueless, I continued, mocking my husband's ignorance. Just because you took my family name doesn't mean you automatically inherit my father's assets. You know nothing.
I understand. I apologize. I'm sorry. This is how it is. The divorce was just a joke. It's all a game with her. Don't take it seriously.
My husband suddenly started making catcalls as if he was trying to flirt. The woman scolded him.
You're terrible. What's wrong with you? You said you'd divorce your wife and marry me to live in this house.
She was furious, her face red. I coldly dismissed him, saying, you have no use for a woman who has lost her breast. Why don't you go live with her? You're perfect for each other. And, oh, I'll give you a week to decide. If you want to leave, get the hell out of here. I'll throw out whatever's left over. As I left, I heard high-pitched voices from inside, my ex-husband's apologies and something breaking. I didn't care, it wasn't my concern. If anything was damaged, I'd deal with it later. I submitted the divorce papers at the city office without hesitation. Although I could have claimed alimony with evidence of his affair, I wanted nothing more to do with that man. I did think that if I had studied a little about society instead of staying in the lab all the time in college, I wouldn't have fallen for such a superficial guy. I'm worried about the cancer coming back, but I won't let it beat me. I am still in my 20s. I'll be fine. My life is just beginning. The woman who was with my ex-husband was apparently a junior colleague at work. I heard from an ex-colleague who happened to meet her that they had a sexual relationship while working overtime and going on business trips together in the same product planning team. This was reported to the upper management of the company, and both were removed from the team and moved to different departments. The woman resigned because she could no longer stand the rumors in the company. My ex-husband was ordered to manage the inventory at an imported goods warehouse near the port, and that he patrolled the warehouse every day. The position was a promotion, but it was a leftward shift to a quieter position. The company probably thought it was a good idea. It was a miserable situation for a young man who was supposed to have a bright future ahead of him. I inherited my father's estate, which I split with my mother. The price of the land increased, and I could not pay the inheritance tax, so I had to pay for about half of the land assets with a Buddhist statue. With the income from the remaining real estate and the income from the cafe, my mother could manage to make ends meet. Now, I run a tutoring center in the house I inherited. Many students from elementary to high school struggle with math, a subject I loved. If even one of them discovers the joy of mathematics, I'll be happy. I'm also working on the research paper I left unfinished during grad school. Maybe someday, when things settle down, I'll return to academia and continue my studies. How was this story? Please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.